Hi, everyone. Welcome back to NAB Show. I'm Alex Lindsay here with Leslie Samuel.
Yes, indeed.
We're back.
We are back.
And we're here with Chris Kraft from Share Rocket. And
How you doing, Chris?
Good afternoon.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Awesome.
So, Share Rocket.
Share Rocket, we are a social media ratings company for broadcasters.
Okay.
We're currently focusing on the local television markets.
Right.
Maybe getting to our first radio market opportunity soon, but we were born here a year ago at NAB. This is where we launched the company, and it's been a fun ride so
You're
far.
still here.
We're still here.
It's a good start. There's
you
some statistic that it's like in the first year, 60% of the companies like, wow.
So far we're beating the odds, which
There
is
you
good.
go.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good sign.
It is.
So now Share Rocket is a little like a Nielsen in some ways?
It's the methodology is very similar in that we're really measuring audience. And in this case, we're focused on the audience of these local media properties, primarily television broadcasters. So we feel like social gives a real accurate view of the conversation that's happening in and around local media, particularly local news.
Right.
And it's really, our insights really give broadcasters some interesting clues into what their audience cares about and what may ultimately be driving them into their website, their mobile properties, and what we believe is an effect called social tune-in, where people will actually go through that process and end up turning on their broadcasts, which is something most broadcasters would like people to do.
And you're looking at Twitter, Facebook,
primarily.
other networks? Primarily.
Yeah,
those.
so about 97% or so of the local conversation and the local DMA about local news and local topics are happening on those two platforms.
Okay.
And how are you measuring them?
So we're actually, our methodology is we literally go in and we create an index of the local media market. So we identify all the constituents, in this case TV broadcasters, and we'll actually laser lock onto their Facebook and Twitter handles, so we're really managing or monitoring their owned media properties. And then we go a step further and we actually lock on to their sub-brands. So a lot of TV stations have sub-brands that do social, like weather and sports, and some cases the traffic department will have their own social media handles.
And also then, some of the hosts.
And then that's the next level. We actually
Right.
get into every single on-air talent that's engaging in social on behalf of the station. So we will typically, in a market like Las Vegas, we'll be tracking about 270 total assets to kind of make up our index. And we roll all that social equity that's happening at each of those levels to the parent station, and they get a real clear view of what they're doing in social at any given time.
And you're just basically looking at the number of tweets, the amount of shares and likes and so on.
Yeah.
In real time.
We are, and we also take into account how much audience, so some of the bigger brands are gaining and losing audience throughout the day, believe it or not, fans and followers. We measure that. We also measure their voice. So how loud are they as broadcasters? What is that voice returning in terms of engagement? So there's three core components, audience, voice, and engagement, but there's a lot of really neat interplay between seeing how those interact with each other. For instance, how engaging are they overall with their social audience?
Well, and I think that one of the things that's important there is that it's not just comparing you to everyone in the United States, it's really comparing you to your local market. Because every local market's going to have a different cross-section or a different flavor of how social's being used. It might be a lot heavier in Seattle than it is in Iowa.
We find every single market has its own personality when it comes to social. Different demographics, different times of day even. Smaller markets tend to have a smaller footprint in social, but a much higher engagement. So those local markets, they tend to have a tighter relationship with that on-air talent that they're watching every night on TV.
Now, can you also look at specific topics and see how different networks are performing on those topics?
You can. So we have a view in our dashboard that actually shows you what the most engaging piece of content is in the market. And so we kind of rank by engagement. We have a top 20 list, actually, that will show a broadcaster or whoever's managing social at the station what's really important to the viewers in that particular market in terms of the social side.
So and how does it become actionable now for the station? They're looking at these analytics, and do you also provide recommendations for how they can improve? How does that work?
So we do a base level of training when we onboard a new client. We show them how to get insights that are actionable out of the tool. It's very powerful. It seems very simple, but it's very powerful to just rank you in terms of performance. That's a great level setting exercise for most stations to say, okay, well, here I am, I'm either first or worst, and I can actually adjust my strategy and tactics from there. And then there are about a dozen different tactics that you can use that the software will give you some insights that you can navigate throughout the day.
And this feedback is really coming back to them in real time.
It is. So we do get content, the content feed in real time, but we do a scoring run every quarter hour. And so every quarter hour we go to every single asset in that market and we tell you what's your share of social and what their overall social equity index score, our proprietary score is every quarter hour. And then we roll that up to the parent brand and rank them, and we know who's winning in social pretty much up to the minute, every quarter hour.
Well, and what's important about that is, especially if you're trying out programs, a lot of times what happens is we're measuring it in the number of followers or the number of other things, and so what happens is you're doing all this work, but you're really not able to know how that's really affecting the conversation for a week or a month or whatever, and the iteration rate on anything that you're developing that's new is everything.
It is, and we've really seen an evolution. And different stations and different ownership groups that own these stations are at different phases of social. And what we're seeing is an increase in sort of the working smarter, not harder. I used to run a pretty large social media agency, and we ran fairly much in the early days of social blind, using our old marketing knowledge, right?
I think most people, I do a lot of work in social, I think most people are blind, pretty blind.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so as that evolved,
it's kind of like witchcraft.
It is.
If we rub this way, there will be followers.
Or voodoo.
Exactly, yeah.
And so as that's evolved and strategies evolve, people starting to use data and analytics to inform their decisions, and even brands now are kind of taking more of a real-time, or I've heard the term agile social approach to managing their brands in social, and in news and in local media, it really is a real-time game. So as sophisticated strategies get more sophisticated, the tactics tend to get more sophisticated, and being able to see what your audience cares about in terms of likes and comments and shares and that raw engagement gives them a lot of insights, and we're actually finding it crossing over into the newscasts. News directors are actually looking at this data to decide how they actually stack their newscast that night.
Right, and it seems like beyond just the feedback to the TV stations, the overall data mining of understanding exactly how all of this works would be useful.
Yeah, there's that old saying, you cannot manage what you can't measure. And so as social strategies evolved and groups have understood that there is likely a very strong correlation between their social activity and their actual TV ratings, they're wanting to manage every aspect of it. And that's really where ShareRocket comes in, and we give them a view of their total social footprint, how much social equity they're creating in the marketplace at any given time, and then we let them tier it. How much is coming from the brand and how much is coming from your on-air talent.
And one of the things that seems like it's important with a lot of these things, especially as we move away from people even knowing what channel they're watching, is being able to make sure that you have access by building up that social network, because a lot of times, I'll argue that content is no longer king; it's community is king. And not having that community, and you see a lot of these broadcasters are still in this kind of one way. We broadcast out, and
they are.
That's it.
Yeah, they are.
And not being able to figure out a way to integrate that audience. And I think this is a great way to know that you're not. The first step's admitting you have a problem.
So I think what you said is exactly right, and the way that the currency of that community is engagement. That's really the best measurement. Yeah. So there's been a lot of debates, to your earlier point of, which metric do I grab onto to say what does winning look like? A lot of folks are still using metrics like reach, which really don't give you the complete picture. We believe, in our point of view, our view of the world anyway, is that engagement really is the determining factor of how tight that community is and what that measurable interaction really is.
And how do you determine engagement? Like what numbers are you looking at? What values are you looking at?
So we're looking at through the different APIs that they allow to see, or they allow us to see. On Facebook, that's likes, comments, and shares.
Okay.
On Twitter, that's mentions, replies, retweets, and favorites.
Now, is it likes, comments, and shares for the pages that you're looking at, or are you also looking at if I have a website where I am sharing articles and content and people are liking those pages?
Yeah, so if you are a station that's got sub-brands like we talked about earlier, we'll definitely measure those. So we're measuring sort of the complete footprint. A typical TV station, let's just say in a top 10 market, will have about 60 different assets out there every day doing social on behalf of their station. That includes the main brand and sub-pages, sub-brands like weather, sports, and traffic. And then, of course, the individual anchors and reporters. They're becoming more and more important every day when it comes to connecting with that audience.
Now, are you here on the floor?
We're not. We actually launched here last year at the Sprocket hub, and we have been conducting most of our meetings off-site, and most of the executives tend to stay in orbit of the trade show floor,
Right.
and so we've tried to just set up out there.
So where can they find out more about you?
ShareRocket.com.
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 All right, great, Chris.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care. And thank you for watching NAB Live. We'll be right back with more.